I had just finished my late shift at the diner and was walking to my car in the nearly empty parking lot. It was around 1 a.m. The fluorescent lights flickered intermittently, casting long, eerie shadows on the pavement. A cool breeze brushed against my skin, a stark contrast to the muggy heat of the day. Exhausted, I sensed something was off. As I approached my car, I noticed a figure leaning against a nearby vehicle. He wore a dark hoodie, the hood pulled low over his face, with hands shoved deep into his pockets. A chill crawled up my spine, prompting me to quicken my pace to avoid eye contact. "Hey," he called, his voice low and slightly slurred. I hesitated, glancing over my shoulder and instinctively gripping my keys tighter. "You got a moment?" My heart raced. "No, I'm just heading home," I replied, trying to sound casual, but the tremor in my voice betrayed me. He pushed off the car and took a few steps toward me. "Come on, I just want to talk." The way he said it sent a wave of unease through me. I forced a smile, hoping it looked friendly rather than fearful. "I really can't, I'm sorry." I made a beeline for my car, fumbling for my keys. The metallic jingle seemed overly loud in the stillness of the night. He followed me, his footsteps echoing in the silence. "Come on, I just want to chat. I'm just looking for someone to talk to." Finally reaching my car, I unlocked it, the beep breaking the heavy tension. "I have to go," I said, my voice shaking. I slipped into the driver's seat and locked the door behind me. "Don't be like that," he said, his tone shifting to something more menacing. "You're not scared of me, are you?" My pulse pounded in my ears as I turned the ignition. "Just leave me alone," I snapped, hands trembling on the steering wheel. He stepped closer, partially illuminated by the dashboard light. I could see the wildness in his eyes, a mix of desperation and something darker. "I just want to know your name," he said, leaning down, his hand resting on my window. "Just a name, that's all." Panic clawed at my throat. "I don't want to talk," I shouted, desperate to sound assertive, but my voice cracked. I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw him straightening up, a sinister smile creeping across his face. As I turned to leave the lot, I spotted him walking after me, his figure shrinking, but his presence still looming. I drove onto a nearby street, adrenaline coursing through my veins, heart racing. But when I turned onto a quieter road, I noticed headlights behind me, too close, too aggressive. I glanced in the mirror. There he was, tailing me. My stomach dropped. "This can't be happening," I muttered. I turned sharply at the next intersection, praying he would lose interest, but he followed, relentless. I fumbled with my phone and called 911. "Please, I think I'm being followed," I whispered into the receiver. "Stay on the line," the operator instructed. "Can you tell me your location?" I glanced around. Every street looked the same in the dim light. I'm near Maple and Pine. Please hurry." I took a hard right, breath quickening as I spotted a convenience store ahead. I accelerated toward it, praying I could make it to safety. The store was still open, lights blazing against the night. I pulled into the lot, tires screeching, and dashed toward the entrance. I could hear his engine revving behind me, the noise echoing in the stillness. Bursting through the doors, the bell chimed loudly, and I felt the cashier's gaze on me. I turned to look back outside, and to my horror, I saw him park haphazardly and start to step out. "Hey, what's going on?" the cashier shouted, alarmed. I hurriedly explained, breathless and terrified. "Call the police," I urged, glancing nervously out the window. The man was slowly walking toward the store, eyes locked on me. Before I could process what was happening, the cashier grabbed the phone and dialed, while I stood frozen, panic washing over me as I realized I was trapped. Moments felt like hours before I saw the flashing lights outside. The man stopped, assessing the situation, then retreated to his car with a defiant air. I watched as the police approached him, letting out a shaky breath. Relief flooded me, but it left behind a sense of violation. When it was over, I drove home in a daze, the shadows in my rearview mirror feeling all too familiar. I couldn't shake the haunting image of his eyes, the way he had looked at me like I was something to be possessed. That night, I locked every door and kept the lights on, but sleep eluded me. I felt watched, his presence lingering like a shadow. Let's not meet again.
It was a chilly October evening, just past 6 p.m., when I decided to take my usual shortcut home from work. The sun had already dipped below the horizon, leaving darkness creeping in, and I felt the air growing colder as I walked through the nearly empty parking lot of the old shopping center. I worked late at a local diner, and my shifts often ended when the streets were quiet. It was a 30-minute walk, but I preferred it over waiting for the bus. As I navigated the cracked pavement, my phone buzzed with a notification. I glanced down but didn't stop, just a message from my sister asking if I could pick up some groceries. I shrugged it off. She could wait until I got home. A few moments later, I noticed a figure lingering near the entrance of a closed store. At first, I thought it was just a homeless man wrapped in a tattered coat, but as I got closer, I realized he was staring directly at me. A shiver crept down my spine. He wore a dark hoodie pulled up, casting shadows over his face, but I could make out his eyes, intense and piercing, evaluating my every move. "Hey!" he called out, his voice gruff and low. I quickened my pace, feigning ignorance. "Where you going, sweetheart? It's a bit late for a girl like you to be out here alone." I fought the urge to look back. Instead, I kept my eyes forward, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't want to provoke him, so I whispered a little prayer to make my feet move faster. I could hear him shuffling after me, his footsteps echoing unnervingly against the concrete. "Don't be rude. I'm just trying to talk. You don't want to ignore someone who might help you, do you?" I glanced over my shoulder, and that was a mistake. He was closer now, just a few yards behind, hands shoved deep in his pockets. I could see the outline of something bulky there. Panic surged through me, and I turned back around, my legs pumping harder. "Leave me alone!" I shouted, my voice shaky but desperate. Adrenaline coursed through me, pushing me to run faster. The parking lot seemed endless. I made a beeline for the street where I knew there were more lights, more people. I could see headlights in the distance, and my hope ignited. "Come on, don't run," he yelled. "I just wanted to chat. You're making this harder than it has to be." I didn't stop to argue. I darted toward the main road, the sound of his footsteps trailing behind me, loud and menacing. I could feel tears threatening to spill over, but I forced myself to focus. If I could just get to the street, I'd be safe. Finally, I reached the intersection and spotted a car approaching. My heart raced as I waved my arms wildly. The driver couldn't possibly ignore me. The headlights swept over me. I could see the car slowing down. "Help!" I screamed, my voice raw. As the car came to a stop, I turned just in time to see the man halt a few feet away, his expression dark and furious. The driver, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, rolled down her window. She asked, "Are you okay?" "I need a ride, please," I begged, feeling the weight of his gaze still upon me. The stranger hesitated, glancing at the man behind me, who was now only seconds away from catching up. "Get in," the woman insisted. I didn't hesitate. I jumped into the passenger seat, slamming the door shut. I could hear the man curse, his voice laced with rage as he pounded his fists against the window. "Drive! Just drive!" I shouted, panic rising again. The woman hit the gas and we sped away, leaving him standing there, his angry silhouette fading into the night. I didn't stop shaking until we reached a busy street. I turned to thank the woman, but she just nodded, assuring me I was safe now. I eventually made it home, but the fear clung to me like a shadow I couldn't shake off. Even after locking every door and turning on every light, the image of that stranger haunted my thoughts. I don't take that shortcut anymore. I don't think I ever will. Let's not meet again.
It was a chilly October evening in 2020 when I decided to take a stroll through my usual park after work. Stressed from a long day of meetings, I thought fresh air would do me good. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, leaving the sky a deep indigo. I could hear the faint rustling of leaves underfoot. The park was usually busy with joggers and dog walkers, even at dusk, so I felt safe. As I walked down the path, I noticed a man sitting on a nearby bench. He appeared to be in his late 30s, with unkempt hair and a scruffy beard, dressed in a hooded sweatshirt that obscured his face. Something about him made me uneasy, but I dismissed it. Perhaps it was just the encroaching darkness. I continued my walk, trying to focus on the sound of my footsteps. Just as I passed the bench, I heard a voice behind me. "Hey, do you have the time?" I turned slightly to see the man standing up, hands shoved deep into his pockets. "Sure," I replied, glancing at my phone. "It's about 6:30. He stepped closer, narrowing his eyes. "You walk here often?" "Just sometimes," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I like the fresh air after work." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Nice. A good place to think." A shiver ran down my spine as I quickened my pace, pretending to check a text. I felt his gaze boring into me. When I glanced back, he had taken a few steps closer. "You should come here more often. It's safer when you know the area." Right, I really have to go," he stammered, my heart racing. "Why don't you stay a while? I could show you around." Panic surged through me. "No, thanks. I really need to get home." "Hey, I'm just trying to be friendly." His voice darkened, and I sensed the threat under the surface. "What's your hurry? It's just a walk in the park, right?" I took a step back, instinct screaming at me to escape. "I told you, I'm leaving." He stepped closer, the smell of sweat and cheap cologne hitting me. "You shouldn't be so rude. I'm just trying to talk. I'm not a bad guy." In that moment, I knew I had to act. I glanced around, hoping for someone, anyone to appear. There was no one else in sight, just looming trees and a dark path. I took a deep breath and pushed past him, sprinting down the trail. "Hey, where are you going?" he shouted, his voice echoing through the empty park. I ran blindly, my heart hammering. I could hear his footsteps pounding behind me, but I didn't dare look back. I turned down a side path, praying for an escape. The adrenaline coursed through me, making every step heavy, but I pressed on. Finally, I spotted the parking lot ahead. My car was parked at the far end, and I forced myself to keep running. I could hear him closing the distance. I had to reach my vehicle first. Fumbling for my keys, my hands trembled as I pulled them out. I jumped into the driver's seat and locked the door just as he reached the car. He banged on the window, face twisted in anger and confusion. "Why are you running? We were just talking," he shouted, desperation chilling me to the bone. I backed out of the parking space without looking, heart racing as I peeled away from the park. I didn't stop until I was several blocks away, breathing heavily and shaking. When I finally arrived home, I locked every door and window, mind racing. The encounter replayed over and over, the man's face etched in my memory. I couldn't shake the feeling of his eyes watching me, realizing I had narrowly escaped something terrible. I still walk past that park sometimes, but I've never gone back at night. I try to forget that man, but the fear lingers. Let's not meet again.
I still remember that Sunday evening in late October when the sun was sinking behind the horizon, casting long shadows across the quiet streets. I had just finished volunteering at the local animal shelter and decided to take a longer route home for some fresh air. I felt good, enjoying the crisp autumn atmosphere and the crunch of leaves under my sneakers, but I was unaware of the danger lurking just a few blocks away. As I turned onto a less frequented street, I noticed a man sitting on a bench scrolling through his phone. He looked up as I approached, and our eyes met. There was something unsettling about his gaze, like he was assessing me. A shiver ran down my spine, but I brushed it off, telling myself it was just a late evening in a quiet neighborhood. "Hey there," he called out, his voice echoing in the now empty street. Yeah," I replied, quickening my pace. My heart rate began to pick up. "Where are you headed?" he asked, standing up from the bench. He took a step closer, and I noticed his tattered hoodie, which made me uneasy. "Just home," I said, trying to sound casual, though my instincts screamed to keep moving. "Just a few more blocks, huh? Mind if I walk with you?" A cold wave of fear washed over me. I glanced around. The street was empty, the fading light making it feel even more deserted. "Actually, I'm fine on my own," I replied, picking up my pace, trying to shake off the dread. "Suit yourself," he said, irritation creeping into his tone. I dared not look back as I hurried down the sidewalk, but the sound of footsteps echoed behind me. I knew he was following me. I approached a corner store, hoping to duck inside and escape. As I neared the entrance, I heard him call out again. "Come on, don't be like that. I just want to talk." Panic surged through me as I pushed the door open, the bell jingling overhead. I glanced back. He was standing on the sidewalk, his expression darkening. I quickly moved to the cashier, trying to act calm. "Can I help you?" the cashier asked, shooting me a confused look. "Just browsing," I mumbled, my eyes glued to the door. The man hadn't moved, but I could see him watching me intently through the glass. "Are you all right?" the cashier asked, noticing my trembling hands. "Not really," I whispered, and before he could respond, I turned and bolted to the back of the store. I hoped he had lost interest. After a few agonizing minutes, I cautiously peeked around the shelves. He was still there, pacing outside, his silhouette barely visible in the dim light. I felt trapped, my heart racing. I needed a plan. Suddenly, a thought struck me. The store had a back exit. I quietly made my way there, my heart pounding. I pushed it open, stepping out into the cold night air. I sprinted down a narrow alley, praying I wouldn't hear his footsteps behind me. I turned left onto another street, trying to lose him. My lungs burned as I ran faster, not daring to look back. I could hear distant traffic and the hum of nearby houses, but nothing felt safe. After what felt like an eternity, I finally ducked into a small residential area, my legs shaking as I slowed to a walk. I glanced over my shoulder and saw no sign of him, yet I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I moved quickly, finally reaching a more populated street with lights. I spotted a couple walking ahead and joined them, feeling a wave of relief. "Are you okay?" one of them asked, noticing my pale face. "Yeah, just had a weird encounter," I said, trying to sound composed. As I made my way home, I replayed the events in my mind. I didn't know if I had escaped danger or if he was still lurking somewhere, waiting. The relief of being safe was overshadowed by lingering fear, a shadow that clings to me. I still think about that night and that man, and I can't shake the feeling that he wasn't my first target. Let's not meet again.
It was a crisp autumn evening in late October when I headed to the gym just before sunset. The cool air enveloped me as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the nearly empty parking lot. Having moved to this small town a few weeks prior, I was still acclimating to the layout. After a long work week, I looked forward to releasing some stress through my workout. As I parked, I noticed a man leaning against a nearby light post. He appeared to be in his late 30s, scruffy, with a faded hoodie pulled tightly around him. His eyes were obscured by the brim of a worn cap, but I felt his gaze fixed on me as I stepped out of the car. I shrugged it off as paranoia. After all, it was just an ordinary evening. "Hey," he called out, his voice gruff. "You got a light?" I hesitated, my heart racing. I didn't smoke, and even if I did, I felt an instinctual urge to avoid engagement. "Sorry, I don't smoke," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral as I walked briskly toward the gym entrance. "Come on, don't be like that," he said, pushing himself off the post and taking slow steps toward me. "You sure you can't help a guy out?" My stomach nodded. I quickened my pace, glancing over my shoulder. He didn't follow immediately, but I sensed his eyes on me, a predator watching its prey. The nearly empty parking lot suddenly felt oppressive, the fading light amplifying my unease. I pushed through the gym doors and exhaled, realizing I had been holding my breath. The familiar smell of sweat and rubber greeted me. I joined a quick circuit of exercises, but found it hard to concentrate. Every time I caught a glimpse of the entrance, my heart skipped a beat, half expecting him to be there. After about an hour, I decided to leave. The gym was quieter now, with only a few others lingering, but I still felt exposed as I stepped back into the evening chill. My car was parked a few rows in, and I walked quickly, glancing around, half expecting him to appear. As I reached my car, I froze. There he was, standing beside my vehicle, one hand shoved deep in his pocket. "Thought I'd find you here," he said, an unsettling grin spreading across his face. "I just wanted to talk." "Please, just leave me alone," I stammered, my voice trembling as I fumbled for my keys. Panic surged through me. He was blocking my way. "Nah, I think we need to chat," he insisted, stepping closer. "You're not scared, are you?" My mind raced. I could feel adrenaline coursing through my veins, the fight-or-flight response kicking in. "I'm calling the police," I said, my voice rising slightly as I dialed 911, hoping he wouldn't notice. "Go ahead," he said, with a dismissive chuckle. "They won't get here in time." I saw the glint of something metallic in his pocket, a flash of silver reflecting the dim light. My heart pounded as I made a split-second decision. I unlocked my car, dove inside, and locked the doors just as he reached for the handle. "Don't be like that," he shouted, his voice rising in anger. "I just want to talk. You don't have to be rude." A surge of fear overwhelmed me as I started the engine. I glanced in the rearview mirror, my hands shaking on the wheel. He was still there, his expression shifting from friendly to furious. I shifted into reverse, praying I could get away in time. I slammed the gas pedal down, the tires screeching against the pavement. I glanced back, momentarily seeing him standing there, fists clenched, but I didn't look back again. I drove straight to the nearest police station, heart still racing. After reporting the incident, I sat in my car, trembling and wide-eyed, replaying the moment in my head. I was lucky to escape, but the fear lingered. Every time I parked in the gym lot afterwards, I'd check my surroundings, feeling his eyes on me, even when they weren't there. That experience changed something within me. I became more aware, more cautious, and each time I stepped out into the world, a shadow of fear remained. Let's not meet again.